I'm back. You didn't just see me for Vlogmas. I'm back for another video. Obviously, I'm with my bookshelf, which means it's gonna be a book motherfucking video. I want to be a part of BookTube so bad because I love BookTube and I find so much comfort in BookTube videos. And I also just want to share my recommendations because I know I want people to read so bad, I guess. A lot of my friends aren't readers and I'm probably one of the only readers in my friend groups and I just want them to read so bad. But here we go. I'm going to talk about all of the books I read in 2022. This was my first year as a reader, I guess, because I started reading in spring break of last school year, which was in April. And it just got me hooked, obsessed, because I didn't know that I can actually read a book within 2 to 3 days. I thought that was for fast readers, but no, you just need the time and just to sit down and be addicted to the book. And it's quite literally saved me, and it's been a safe thing for me this whole year, and I love it, and I'm so excited that I'm a reader now. So this whole shelf is gonna soon enough disappear because I have to go and show you everything I read this year. The first book I read is It Ends With Us with Colleen Hoover. This was the book that got me into reading. I got it for Christmas last year and I read it in Hawaii. And basically, trigger warnings before you read the book, it's about domestic violence and domestic abuse. But it just my first romance I ever read, and I didn't know that it could be like this, and you kind of get the story of how they fall in love and just their lives and stuff like that. Also, please ignore my nails. They're so ratchet. After that, I was just where can I get good book recommendations? And the first person that popped in my head was Nicole Leno. So I went to her highlights and I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is a YA kind of thriller crime type of thing. It's basically about this main character. She take the perspective of Pip, who's doing a school project, and she's trying to solve a murder that happened a few years ago that affected the district and stuff. So this one was a 4-star because I kind of had a slump reading it. My next one I don't have with me because Jenna's reading it is Verity, 5-star. No, I read it in the beginning of summer and I was obsessed with it. I couldn't get over the fact and I was just obsessed with the book. Basically, Verity is about, it's a thriller romance, more it's kind of scary, so spooky. But it's basically about this girl named Verity, duh. And then another girl, I forgot her name. But it takes perspective of the other girl who is going to help finish Verity's old writing, because Verity was a very famous author who can't write anymore. So she's working with Verity's husband to help her write it. And she's staying in their house and stuff, but Verity is in a very critical condition. So she's still there, kind of bedbound at the house. She's very spooky. And then I read Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover because I knew I could trust Colleen Hoover. And I remember reading this when I had I dog sat with Kimmelin, and Kimmelin was reading Verity and I was reading this. This is basically a forbidden love type of romance. I rated it a 4 stars. No, I gave it a 3 stars because it has the trope of cheating, which I didn't like. Cheating kind of icks me, and just the fact that she was kind of an ignorant girl, and the guy just gave me weird vibes. I guess it's just their love story, and it was kind of mid. After that, I read The Great Gatsby, not for a school assignment, but by choice. And this made me feel so smart that I chose this by choice, and I actually enjoyed it. I did take quite a long time to finish it because the vocabulary is quite elegant and elevated, and was a little intense for me because I just started reading and I was But I gave it a 3 stars. It's basically about going through this one person's perspective and going through what the party life is, and what I don't know what year this takes place, in the 1920s. Takes place in the 1920s, and just talks about drinking, sex, and how they treated women and stuff, and it's honestly like crazy. The next book I don't have with me because I borrowed it from Kimmelin. It's November 9th. It's one of Kimmelin's faves. And I gave it 4 stars. I actually really loved November 9th. I ate it up in 2 days. It was really good. It's basically about these 2 people who bump in at like a restaurant. I don't even know what it is, but a restaurant. And then they meet on November 9th every year. And that's the only time they communicate and meet. And they just kind of like start this like love thing. And then at the end, they have like some sort of like plot twist. But I really liked it because it was just like an easy read. And I just wanted to know, especially because the years didn't feel like a waste of time. Like I needed to see what happened each year. The next is one of my favorites of, where is that? Maybe the favorite. I tabbed this book. This is when I first started tabbing, and I'm so glad I did. It is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reads. I love this book so much. I've got this book because I was watching a Haley fan video, I think, and I was watching it with Dylan, and Dylan was like, you have to get this book when she told me the synopsis. 5 stars, 5 stars. I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. Not only because it's just like a good story, but like I pulled so many quotes out of this book, and it just like taught me a little bit more about love, I guess. But it's about these high school sweethearts who get married, and her husband dies in a plane crash, helicopter crash, or something like that. So she has to kind of like recover from that and the fact that she lost her high school sweetheart who like made her the person she is, I guess. And she eventually like moves on after like recovering from that. But once she's moved on, literally right when she moves on, it feels like, she finds out that her husband's actually not dead. So who does she choose? Also, that's not a spoiler because it's on the back of the book. It's another coho, but this one's not a romance. I went into this book blindly. Please look at the trigger warnings before reading this book because I went into it blindly, which is not a good idea. To be completely honest, trigger warning, mental health, suicide. It just takes perspective of this girl who lives in a really big family, and she's just not doing great. I rated it a 3 stars because I was so unprepared. After reading that, I was like, I need a little pick-me-up. So I read another of Taylor Jenkins Reid because I trusted her with my life after One True Loves. So I picked up The 7 Husbands of Evelyn and Hugo, which I feel like everyone has read this book or like knows about this book. I gave it a 4 star because I was able to finish it, but for some reason I wasn't craving to pick it back up. Like when I was in the middle of reading it, I wouldn't be like, ooh, I really want to read right now. Because I guess the story didn't hook me as much. But it's basically about this girl who is interviewing Evelyn Hugo, who is like a famous girl from the 80s. And she had a lot of wives. Like everyone knew that she literally hoed around because of her looks and stuff like that. That's why she made it in like the Hollywood industry. So she kind of just goes through each of those marriages and like what they meant to her and if they meant something to her. And then finding out who her true love really was. Coho book, because I didn't see a lot of people talk about this, so I was like, I want to be so cool, and I'm gonna pick up a coho book that not a lot of people talk about. This is Confess. It's a romance, rated at 4 stars. It was just a romance, like it was just something that I could just like read. I think I breezed through this book actually. It's about Auburn and Owen. Auburn is just like this girl who is like, girl, to be honest, I don't even remember this book that much, but I know that Owen owns like an art studio where he takes confessions and he turns them into art. Like literally. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting, like the fact that he takes confessions and turns them into art, and the fact that he's like an artist and she's like a innocent little girl, I guess. Okay, so I said I rated this 4 stars, but to be completely honest, I think it's a 3. Picked up another coho because this book, I saw a lot of quotes on Bookstagram about this book, so I was like, I gotta get it. I actually was reading this during my college tour trip, and let me tell you, this was not a good book to read because it was kind of sad, but kind of lighthearted, but like, and like, I just wanted like to be with my boyfriend. You know what I mean? Like when books just like make you want to be with your boyfriend. Like that's what this was like. Basically, All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. This is basically about how Quinn met Graham, her husband, and where they are now. It's kind of like a big time jump going back and forth, like telling their love story and then talking about like what they're struggling with now, which is like really sad. Trigger warning, it's about infertility. So they kind of struggle with that, and she has like a really like, she's very triggered by it because how it's affected their relationship and how she feels like she's kind of useless. And then I read Their Eyes Were Watching God. First goal. Miss Schwartz, if you're watching this, I loved Their Eyes Were Watching God. But no, actually, you know, it was a great feminist telling about how women can be in power, and it also took perspective of a Black woman. So you kind of got like her internationalities caused a lot of oppression on her, but she fought back. Like she fought back, and she knew like she fought for love and like all that. Basically follows this one girl, Janie. I'm not gonna summarize it because I'm scared I'm gonna get it wrong, and then Miss Schwartz is gonna be like, Kayla, did you even read the book? I swear I read the book, I swear. Then since It Starts With Us came out, I was like, F Malibu Rising, no offense, because I just couldn't get into it. I'm gonna read It Starts With Us because of course, like you have to read It Starts With Us, like everyone did, right? I actually read it like right when it came to my front door in like 2 days. It's basically like the continuation of It Ends With Us about Lily, Ryle, and Atlas. Basically you get more of Atlas's perspective. Atlas was like Lily's like childhood lover, I guess, or like first love. So it kind of stirs up Lily and Ryle's relationship, but it doesn't stop Lily and Atlas. That's for sure. Okay, and then after that, my mom has this next book, which I loved. It got me into psychological thrillers, which, oh my gosh, that's literally me. Like, what? Psychological thrillers? Thank gosh for this book. It's The Silent Patient. Reading this in the middle of program, so it just was like kind of fitting, I guess, in some ways, but at the same time, I was just so like, I was just craving the story so much because like I just wanted to know like why the hell is she not talking, if that makes sense. So basically it's about this famous artist who hasn't talked since her husband's death, and she's actually proven guilty for her husband's death because of like the way evidence was placed, but no one actually knows because she hasn't talked since her husband's death. And they were like, well, why isn't she talking? And like I was like, why isn't she talking? So it takes perspective of the psychotherapist trying to like unravel her and like fix her and make her talk. And honestly, like he's getting on a good start, and then there's a big plot twist, and I'm like, what? That's all I have to say. Then I needed a little pick-me-up, so I picked up Archer's Voice, which I was so excited to read this book, and it's worth all the excitement because I rated it a 5 stars. This one is Small Town Romance, but like Grumpy Sunshine. Basically, it is about Archer. This girl, she moves into the small town to kind of get away from like life at home, and he is just like this like odd fellow, really. They describe him as strange, silent, and isolated, and that Archer communicates with no one, and she kind of breaks him out of the shell, and it just brings out the best version of Archer. And I literally love their relationship, especially because Archer has been so sheltered his whole life, which you'll learn why, and especially like what happened, but also just like the family drama and the romance of them building. It's just so crazy. I love it. I was really enjoying the romances, so I read Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. Obviously, look at this book. Not that it's like a long book, but like Like, what in the world? Why is it so tall? This book is on one of those books where it's like books I sobbed while reading it. And it's like shows all those books. This is one of them. I did not sob. Maybe if I was alone in my room, I'd be sobbing. I was reading this on a trip, and it just was, it was just very sad. Basically, I gave it 5 stars because it was just, the storyline was just perfect, I guess, and I think the guy was perfect. Obviously, I'm very character driven, but it's basically about childhood friends. They're honestly childhood lovers, and it kind of goes along with their like relationship as they grow up, and it goes all the way until senior year where things are kind of different. Both the characters are kind of different, and they kind of have to rekindle because they were separated for a little bit. But this is just crazy. The last book I don't want to grab. It's like on my Harry shrine. So my last book is My Policeman by Harry Styles. Just kidding, it's not by Harry Styles. That is the last book I read of 2022. Honestly, I rated it 4 stars. I think I say 3, but like, it's honestly a 4 stars. Like, it was a good book. It's basically like a forbidden love type of thing. It takes like perspective of like the present and past. The main reason I read the book was only because Harry's starring in the movie. Basically, it takes place of this one couple, Tom and... I literally just read the book and I already forgot her name. Tom and this girl. And the present is like the girl taking care of this guy named Patrick, and she's writing like her love story about Tom and her to Patrick to kind of explain that. But then you go into Patrick's journal entries around the same time about what Patrick and Tom's relationship was like. Then you kind of get the sense. But that is all the books I read in 2022. 16 in total, actually. For the first year being a reader and starting in April, I think that's really good. That's way more than 1 book a month, which I'm very proud of as a first reader. So I'm going to continue doing like booktube stuff because I want to be a booktuber. Yeah. I hope you guys want to read now. I hope you read now. You should read now.